So tonight we want to talk about parentification in women. Parentification in women. So parentification happens when adult roles, whether they are physical or emotional, are forced upon a child. It could be because of circumstances. Maybe the parent is disabled or vulnerable in one way or another. Or it could be because the parent is abusive. So when you're dealing with this narcissist, this psychopath, these dark tetrad personalities, you know that you cannot operate on an equal basis and you cannot relate with them in a healthy manner. Because they have a God complex, I also like to say that they have a child complex, which is something I've never had anyone, put like that. So maybe you can attribute that to me. They also have a child complex. They have to relate with you either as your parent or as your child. And it will be both depending on the circumstance. So if your parent or if one parent is narcissistic in nature or abusive, and I also agree with Dr. Ramney that all abusive people are narcissists. For me, I do not separate abuse, okay? I don't separate abuse. If I see an abusive person, I will immediately categorize them as a narcissist. So yeah, if you have this kind of a parent, they will, when you're a child, they will force you to become a parent. They will invert roles so that they can become a child themselves. And then when they have something to gain out of it, they will go back to being a parent and force you into being a child. This reverse will be rolled. These roles will be reversed, even if it's the other way around. Even if it's two adults, they will become a child and a parent depending on the situation. And so parentification happens when a child is forced onto them, whether by abuse or by circumstance, physical and emotional adult roles. Let me give you a few examples. So, for example, emotionally speaking, if a child acts as a therapist or a confidant for their parent, when it comes to their mental problems, when it comes to their health, mental health issues, when it comes to their challenges, that is parentification taking place on an emotional level. Because you see, the child should not be your sound card. They should not be your soundboard. A child should not be taking on the challenges that come with mental problems in their parents. When that happens and they are forced to become the counselor, the therapist to the parent, because the parent is not stable, parentification is happening on an emotional level. Parentification can also happen on an instrumental level when the child is taking care of the house. The child is running the house. The child is paying the bills. The child is providing primary care either towards other siblings or the parents. Usually this will happen with the black sheep of the family. I remember when I was a kid, I was the black sheep of the family. So all the jobs were given to me. My dad would parentificate me instrumentally. I was the one who was doing all the dishes, cleaning the house. He would wait for everyone to finish eating. And then he says to me, go wash the utensils. He would wake me up, give me all the jobs. My siblings would go dirty things or do whatever. If there's some untidiness that has occurred due to my siblings, playing around the living area, I'm the one who he would tell, go and tidy the living room, go and wash the dishes, go and clean the car. Go and feed the cows, go and feed the chicken, go and cultivate, till the land. We had a garden there. All the while, my other siblings are just sitting, chilling down. And so he used to force me to provide that primary care to my siblings. That was parentification happening instrumentally. You're being used. It can also happen in a mediating fashion, when a child is the peacemaker between conflicts in the home, and either the child has to be the translator or be the one to be the adult. Parentification is happening. So this used to happen to me also a lot, because my parents were like this. They were always quarreling impossibly, and I had to be the one to mediate, to make sure that they are acting as adults, to make sure that they are not going overboard. That is parentification, because it's the parent who is supposed to be doing that. It should be me and my siblings quarreling and the parent intervening. It shouldn't be the other way around. My parents quarreling and me, the child, intervening. So parentification happens in those three major versions. When these adult roles that are physical and emotional are forced upon a child, emotionally, instrumentally, and in a mediatory fashion. Now, the question that was asked to me in the WhatsApp group was, when it comes to women, because it was an important note, which is true, even according to the statistics, that women tend to become victims of narcissists if those women were parentified. Let me just say that to set the stage. Women who were parentified as children, as girls, keep tapping on the screen and sharing the live. Women who were emotionally, instrumentally, and in a mediating fashion parentified end up becoming spouses to narcissists. And so the question was, how is it that this happens? Why does there seem to be such a magnetism between women who were parentified as kids with narcissists when they get to their adult nature? And how can we stop it? How do we deal with it? How does it come about? How do we tell that we are that kind of a woman? How do we stop this enabling trend? That's what I'll attempt to be answering tonight. So let me just begin by, I want to systematize, to kind of compartmentalize it, so that it will be easy to systematize the points that I want to make. All right, keep tapping on the screen and sharing the live. We're talking about parentification in women. Or there are results that happen when a woman is being parentified. There are physical results and there are psychological results. Studies have found that, physically speaking, girls who have been parentified get to puberty earlier than their peers. And it's not just their peers across the board. We expect girls to hit puberty before boys, right? But I'm talking about among other girls. So that it's such a serious issue that they can get to puberty 2 years, up to 2 years earlier than their other age mates, their other girls, the average girl. It's actually called, it has a term, it's called precocious puberty. It happens when a a small girl gets to puberty before they get to 8 years old. Physically speaking, physiologically, parentification has this effect. Do not make a mistake of thinking that emotional and psychological parentification will not bear physically on the child. It will manifest physically. Have you seen those small girls who already have their breasts developed, who already have their hips developed? And you look at her and you're wondering, is this a short woman or what's happening here? Because this is a small girl. This girl is not even 8 years old, but the body already looks like the body of a woman. If you see such a girl, it's possibly because they are being parentified at home. Because you see, the brain does not know the difference between what it's experiencing and what the person is supposed to be. So that when you're being treated as an adult, your body will respond that way. Because at some point in time, your brain will go like, wait, what's happening here? Because this girl is the one who is acting as an adult. Emotionally, they are the therapist to their unstable parent. Or unfortunately, maybe the parent is vulnerable or disabled, and so they have to become the parent. They have to be the primary carer. Or if they are being abused, so that they are the ones taking care of their siblings. Or if they are the mediator, they are the peacemakers between adults. If this happens, the body of a girl responds by maturing her precautiously, so that she hits puberty 2 years before other girls hit puberty. And the problem with that is that she is still a child. Although the body is the body of a woman, the mind and the soul is still that of a baby. And this is where I want to say that it starts to get dangerous, even sexually, for the woman. Because now she has taken on the features of an adult woman. She begins to appeal to men. And so as a child, she becomes very attractive to child predators. And these child predators are not far away. These child predators are her cousins, are her uncles, her teachers, people you do not suspect. In fact, if a girl has been inappropriately getting touched, if they have a sexually abusive predator as a relative, and it's always those relatives who have been touching her inappropriately, the body does not know. The body thinks, oh wait, I must be a woman, so there's a delay somewhere, and the brain goes into overdrive. It spikes up your oxytocin levels, spikes up all those hormones that make a girl to turn into a woman. This is a theory I want to put out there. If you see a very young girl who seems to be developing precautiously, look at the men around her, the older men around her. It's possible that she's being sexually abused. She's getting touched, or she's being told things. She's being seduced. That's why she's maturing faster than other girls. She shouldn't be having her breasts out and her hips out before 8 years old. It's not natural. that girl is being parentified. Now, to answer the question was asked to me, why do narcissists and parentified women seem to be attracted? There seems to be a magnetism behind it. That is the first level I want to present to you of magnetism between narcissists and parentified girls. Because a narcissist knows this girl is vulnerable. She cannot think, she cannot be able to put into words what I'm doing to her. Because by that, this is why children are such an appealing target to predators and abusers. It's because they haven't developed the language yet to be able to describe this abuse. So they are appealing, they are very appealing to narcissists, very appealing to child predators. Because from that young age, she's already got to puberty. She's experienced a precocious pubescent experience, so that her physiological mechanism is developing her reproductive system before the time that it should. Starts from childhood. Psychologically, there are a few things that happen. These girls become hyper vigilant, because if they are the ones who are taking care of their vulnerable parents, or if they are the ones who are handling narcissistic abuse, they'll be walking on eggshells, right? Because hypervigilance basically creates in you that ability to read moods and to anticipate needs. Now, because this parent has positioned themselves, whether circumstantially or abusively, as a child, so that now the child has to be the parent, there is a psychological effect of hypervigilance. The child is always looking out to see the mood of this adult, because they have to be the stabilizing factor. Anyone who's been dealing with a narcissist knows that narcissists are just big children. By big children, I mean that they are not able to regulate their emotions, because an adult should be a stable person. An adult should be mature. It is an adult who should be comforting a crying baby. It should not be a baby who is comforting a crybaby adult. And so the woman or the mother is always hypervigilant, because the baby can cry at any time at night. The baby can be distressed at any time at night. And the mother has to be the one to take the baby, comfort the baby, and regulate the dysregulation of the baby. Because a child cannot be able to regulate themselves emotionally or internally. Emotional regulation in babies is external, based on how the adult behaves around that baby. That will determine whether the baby will be able to regulate themselves. So when these roles are reversed, so that we have an adult who is narcissistic, who is a big baby, who can't regulate their emotions, who is not stable, who cannot make the proper logical and emotional decisions that they need to make, so that the child now has to mature to be the regulating factor. It causes hypervigilance in the girl, because this girl has to be able to read moods the way the parent should be reading the moods of the baby. They have to be able to anticipate needs the way the parent should be able to anticipate needs. This creates hypervigilance in them, very appealing to a narcissist. Because when the narcissist comes along, this girl is able to read the mood of the narcissist and try to parent the narcissist, to comfort the narcissist, to regulate his dysregulation, to anticipate their needs. Always have to be looking out. Now, when the narcissist comes across such a person, this is a person who they will fixate on. Because for the first time in their life, you're saying they throw tantrums when frustrated. Yes. So for the first time in their life, they have found someone who can be able to regulate them. Because remember, the narcissist is a big child. Meaning, the narcissist is not able to regulate emotions internally. They have to outsource emotional stability. They've come across a woman who is finally able to do it for them because they can't do it for themselves. Then magnetism helps. Magnetism happens. Now, if this woman had been parentified, such that they had to do this for the parent when they were small girls, when they come across the narcissist, it feels familiar to them. That's how hypervigilance comes into play. That's how it makes them an appealing target for narcissists. Another psychological front is that they have this fixer mentality, because a narcissist will come and present themselves as a vulnerable person, as a person who needs help, as a person who needs to be saved. Or they will present themselves as a person who has potential to become something. And so the fixer mentality in the girl who was parentified is triggered. Remember, when she was a small girl, she had to do this for the parent because the parent was vulnerable. And the parent was showing potential for change one day. If I do something right, it will be well with my parent one day. So this created inside the girl this fixer mentality of vulnerability and potentiality. I meet someone who is vulnerable, but they have the potential to become something if only I can fix them. This is something the girl learned from childhood when she was being parentified. Are we together? So it creates in the girl a savior complex, which is a problem in itself. If you have a savior complex and you feel that you need to save everyone, you're broken. It's not a strength. It's a form of brokenness because you are no one's savior. You've not been called to save anyone. Keep tapping on the screen and sharing the live. Another psychological front that causes the magnetism between a parentified woman and a narcissist is a high tolerance for dysfunction. A high tolerance for dysfunction. Now, if you are dealing with an unstable parent or a needy parent from the time you were a child, if it was abusively or circumstantially, maybe because of a disability or vulnerability, or it's because of narcissism and toxicity, if that was the reason that they were being parentified, then they have come across this person who is very unstable, very needy, and very familiar to the girl's experience. And for the first time in this narcissist's life, he has met someone who can be able to take his unacceptable behavior in the name of believing in them, in the name of being there for them, in the name of loyalty, in the name of faithfulness, in the name of potential. This girl has become very tolerant to dysfunction. They can take a lot because they've been taking a lot. And so they come across this guy who is a lot to deal with because they were parentified. So if this parentified girl now has a high tolerance for dysfunction, they become very appealing to the narcissist. Keep tapping on the screen and sharing the live. Are we together? Another psychological front is over responsibility. Over responsibility. Meaning, you see, when this girl was being parentified, they had to cover for the parents, right? They had to be able to take a part of the parents' shame. They had to take, in order to survive, a large part of the parents' blame. Therefore, they become over-responsible. There's an overreach. There's an overreach in what they are able to accept, what they are willing to take in terms of blame. And so they take for themselves a share of the responsibility of this unacceptable behavior of this narcissist, because they are very willing to share the blame. Now, this is very appealing to the narcissist, because if you find someone who is willing to take my wrongdoings upon themselves in the name of peace or in the name of potential, they are very willing to excuse my unacceptable behavior away, then you become a very appealing target, because I don't need to take accountability for my actions. Tap on the screen and share the live. We are talking about, remember I'm answering Juliet's question about the magnetism between a parentified woman and the narcissist. So the narcissist, due to your overreach, your over-responsibility, is able to excuse away their behavior by shifting blame onto the willing partner. That excuses my need for accountability. So you become a very appealing target for me as a narcissist. Now, if you've noticed, I'm describing something very serious, because you're beginning to see yourself. You're seeing your sister or your cousin or someone you know. So it's possible you're even seeing yourself as the parent in this dynamic. Maybe you didn't know. Remember when I started this live, or this particular section of the live, I was describing how it actually happens. And I described that parentification happens on an emotional front, on an instrumental front, and on a mediatory front. But now that you're understanding what's going on, you need to know how to stop it. So this is how, as a parentified woman, you know how to stop, or you can begin to stop this magnetism that has been going on with you. If you came across this type of woman, you will hear them saying words like, all men are the same. All men are dogs. Oh men, oh men, oh men. All the problems of women start with men. Do you know why? It's not because men have an issue, but it's because she is attracting the same type of man. It doesn't matter if she changes continents. Her nature, if she was parentified, will appeal to the broken man. Because a healthy man will not go for that kind of a woman. So it's not that there are no healthy men out there, but healthy men who are emotionally mature, who have emotional emotional acuity will pursue a different type of woman. They'll recognize your savior complex, your need to save and to fix everything. They'll recognize it as a problem, not as a virtue. So they'll not pursue you. Here's the reason you're not attracting those good men. You only see them on TV, or you hear about them in the Bible, but they never seem to come your way. Why? Because what is familiar with you is a different thing. So you need to identify the hook. This is the first step. This is the very first step to breaking free, is you need to identify the hook. Now, because a narcissist either approaches you using grandiosity or victimhood, they will usually present a vulnerable past. If you hear someone saying, all my exes were crazy, or no one understands me like you do, I've never met someone like you, etc., etc. Be very careful. They're probably not complimenting you. They could just be auditioning you to be their caretaker. Have you understood what I just said? So they came as a vulnerable person, saying about how crazy all the girls they have ever met are just out of their minds, blah, blah, blah. Only you can fix them. Only you. You are the star of the show. So they are appealing also to your need to be needed, which you developed when you are being parentified. So you need to identify this hook. Know if this person is coming like this. Is this person really coming genuinely, or are they coming to, check whether I'm a potential caretaker for them? So the fix will be to believe what you see when you see it. Listen, if you're a parentified woman, this statement is very important for you. Believe what you see when you see it. When they show you who they are, believe them. Don't believe in the promise of potential. Believe in what they have shown you that they are. If you do that, you will have identified what hooks you. That was the first step towards stopping this. The second step is to practice the pause. Practicing to stop, to wait, to be patient. So you need to, because as a parentified woman, remember you've been raising a big baby. And if you're raising a baby, one thing you're very astute at doing is solving problems very quickly. Because if the baby starts wailing and producing tantrums at night, you have to rush very quickly to their cot, to their bed, pick them up and comfort them. You have to solve problems speedily, in haste. Now, the problem is when you come to an adult, this should not apply. You should not be giving baby treatment to a grown-up. A grown-up should be mature. They should be able to handle their own problems. They should be able to sit down and logically arrive at conclusions. If these are basic emotional and logistical problems, an adult should not need saving. So you need to practice how to pause whenever you see a problem. Stop rushing to fix things. Observe and see whether that person is mature enough to get an answer to this issue. If they can't, they are not looking for a partner, they are looking for a parent. Are we together? Thirdly, you need to learn how to lower your empathy. Just temporarily. Need to learn how to lower your empathy. Temporarily. Now, this might feel very counterintuitive to you, but you need to understand that this person's pain and the why of his pain is not an excuse for how they treat others or how they treat you. Their pain does not justify their behavior. Your pain, as sorry as I am about your pain and what you went through, does not justify the fact that you are now transmitting that pain over to me. Because this nature of empathy will cause you to rush and take upon yourself that pain in order to regulate that person. Because you're treating an adult like a baby. Because that's what you do with babies. So you're on your part. You must stop. As counterintuitive as it feels, you must stop yourself from acting upon your empathetic nature. Because not everyone deserves it. Whenever you give empathy to a narcissist, you are not practicing humanity. You're not being forgiving. You're not being gracious. You're being enabling. You're an enabler. That's all you're doing. Tap on the screen, guys. Share the live. The fourth step, remember, we are looking at how to stop, is that you need to build a boredom tolerance. You need to build a boredom tolerance, a tolerance for boredom. I'll explain. You know, when you are being parentified, somatically speaking, your adrenaline levels were always getting spiked because you always had to be a problem solver. You always had to be saving someone. And this is what became familiar to you. This became your norm. An abnormal situation became normal to you. Now, because your body is familiar with your adrenaline getting spiked up and all over the place, so that extreme has become your norm. Whenever you meet a stable man, that person becomes boring to you. I don't know whether you've watched these dating shows, and I have a problem with those dating shows because I don't know what people go to do there. For me, it's a red flag. If I see you on a dating site or in a dating show, for me, it's a red flag. I'm sorry. That's a big problem for me, because what is the difference between those people you're going to meet there and the people you've known all your life? Human beings are all the same. If you can't work out with your neighbor, what makes you think you can work out with the person you meet on a dating site or a dating show? Because they're still the same human. Why does it have to work only when you meet someone in a dating site or a dating show? And it can never work elsewhere. To me, it's a red flag. Anyway, to each their own. I'm not saying if you met at a dating site, you have an issue, that's up to you. I'm just giving you my opinion. And so I'm saying all that to say this. Because we are trying to build a tolerance for boredom as you understand it at this point in time. Because for you, a stable person, an emotionally mature person, is not full of drama. They don't cause tantrums. They internally regulate, so they don't need to outsource stability, whether emotionally or otherwise. They work hard, so they don't need you to provide money for them. They don't need you to provide finances, to provide unreasonable amounts of time to them, because they are stable. This is not normal to you. To you, this starts feeling like a problem because you've been, your mind has been rewired to think that those who are problematic are those who are okay. That is the way it's supposed to be. So you need to tolerate boredom. Be okay with boredom. We are looking at how to stop finding yourself together with narcissists. You need to be okay with a stable man who comes not needing you to save them. You need to be okay with people who don't need fixing. You need to challenge your thoughts, because that spark that you're feeling when your adrenaline shoots, when you need to save someone, that is just a signal from your nervous system, which is shouting at you. It is recognizing a familiar pattern, which has brought upon you all this toxicity for all your life. You need to understand that you cannot love someone into health. You cannot love someone